It's time for the Hockey Writers Grindline, a weekly show covering everything Detroit Red Wings. Brought to you by our own iconic top line of Wings writers. Sit back and enjoy the grind.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Hockey Writers Grindline. I am your host, Matthew Zator, and always joined in by my defense partner, Devin Little. Devin, how's it going? Another week in the books, 1 week closer to the regular season starting. How's it going?
Yeah, you're right. We're getting towards the end of August now, which means September is just around the corner. And you know what that means? Traverse City is just around the corner. So yeah, we're still not quite there yet, but we're very close.
Yes, we're getting very much closer, and it's fun to start thinking about. Yeah, Traverse City will be the first one, training camp, then the regular season, and we'll be talking finally about hockey being on rather than just talking about what last season was. And but that's gonna be fun. All right. Well, before we get going with our show, we got to do our one good, one bad. We always do that at the beginning of the show. Devin, what's a good and a bad from this past week?
Yeah, not to jump the gun a little bit here, but my one good is that the team is locked in now. Um, Joe Veleno just got signed.
Yeah.
Obviously, team acquired Jeff Petrie a week ago. By all accounts, it looks like we know, the team's in place now. So now we just got to get on the ice again, right? And then my one bad is that now that Veleno signed, we don't really have anything to look forward to. We don't have like news that we know is coming at some point. So, yeah, for between now and when Traverse City starts, we're kind of now we're just going to keep on keep now. We don't have anything to wait for.
Yeah, the news is done. We're not, unless there's another trade, which I don't see happening. I think that's it for Yzerman. So we just have to wait for Traverse City and the fun that comes with that. So, yeah, I think, I'll change my good. I finally got my prospect spotlight done on Emil Vero. That came out today. So if you wanted to take a look at that, that is out at the Hockey Writers. One of my favorite defensemen in the Red Wing system. If you don't know that already, if you've watched this show before, if you watched Prospect Corner before, you know that he's one of my favorites, even though he's not the flashiest defenseman, but very solid. He's going to be in tough in Grand Rapids this season to get ice time, just like he was last season. Even though Donovan Zabrango's no longer in the organization, they still have some really good defensive prospects down there. So it's going to be tough, but have a chance to get some games and development. And we may not see him in a Red Wings uniform this year, maybe preseason, but I don't know about the regular season. But take a look at that. It just, I got that up today. So, and my bad is the fact that we have no news anymore. That Joe Veleno stuff was the last one we were waiting for, and now that's done. But well, who knows? We may get a surprise or two before the Traverse City gets going. I don't anticipate it, but you never know. All right. Well, we've talked about him in our one good, one bad. Let's keep talking about him, and that's Joe Veleno. He signs a 1-year deal. We weren't anticipating, I don't think, much more than around that, but only 1 year, $825,000. Not a big deal. I think it's more of a prove it. I mean, we'll see what he does this season. But Devin, what do you think about Joe's new deal? Like I said, it's not a long-term deal. It's very short, so minimum. So what do you think about the deal and what's going to happen with him going into this season?
Yeah, you use the word minimum. Not only is it minimum term, it's almost minimum dollar too. Like I don't know how you can be upset about this deal unless like you were hoping he got like a longer term deal. But we've talked about this before on the show. It's a big year for Joe Veleno. He hasn't really proven that he is really anything more than a bottom six center, fourth line. He's been a fourth line center basically since he got into the league.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. But if he's going to be, anything more than that, this is this is the year for him to show it. And that's what this contract really says too, is, um, where we go after this season, it's all up to what he does this year. Obviously they've got Larkin down the middle. They got Kopp. They signed Comp for Marco Kasper's coming up. He's knocking on the door. You'll have Nate Danielson knocking on the door as well. Um, if Veleno's going to stick down the middle and play any higher than the fourth line, um, he's going to have a real good season, a breakout season, to be honest with you. And I wouldn't write it off. He has shown flashes, and he's like I said, he's been solid in the role he's played. But he's gonna have to take some steps for sure. Really curious to see how he performs this season, because he's got all the incentive in the world to really, take his game to another level.
Yeah, I mean, he played 81 games last season, so I mean, he wasn't out of the lineup very much, only one game. So, he was given that role. And I mean, career high, 9 goals, 20 points. So, I mean, it's not like that's bad. But like you said, there's guys knocking on the door going to take his position pretty quick. If he doesn't, unless he solidifies himself as a fourth line center that, you don't want to be out of the lineup. But I don't think he's there yet either. I don't think he's indispensable, like as a fourth line center. I mean, other guys can take over his spot. Like you mentioned, those two guys, Danielson and Kasper, they're going to be able to play that fourth line role. That's not their ceiling, but they'll be able to come in and play like that and be relied upon to play good defensive two-way minutes. And that's what Veleno's doing right now. So, I mean, and I think both those guys have a lot more offensive potential. And Veleno may only top out as a 15, 20 goal scorer, unfortunately. It's not bad, but it's not something you'd expect from a first round pick, right? So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what he does this season. He's going to have some pretty good line mates to play with as it stands right now. So, I mean, yeah, prove it, make it or break it, whatever you want to call this season for Joe Veleno. That's what it's going to be. So we'll just have to wait. Yeah, that's all it basically is to say about him, right? All right. Well, before we get to our next half of the show, let's go to our off the rush segment here. And it's about Veleno. Devin, what do you think? Is there a possibility he's traded during the season? Because it is only 1-year deal. Probably won't get a lot for him unless, like you say, it goes on a breakout season. He's like at 15 something goals by the trade deadline. Then, we may have some interest. Do you think that's a possibility, or does he play out this season in Detroit?
I do think it's a possibility. And I could see him being a piece in a bigger package to acquire another weapon somewhere in the lineup. I know, before this offseason really got started and before they traded for DeBrincat, before they made all the moves they were going to make, I kind of thought that he and Philip Zadina were both in that same camp of players you could put into a package and, try to acquire a player with. Obviously, Zadina's already gone. Veleno and Berggren are kind of the last men standing out of that 2018 draft class. Yeah, I wouldn't say that I'm expecting him to be traded this year, especially if he kind of just continues as he is, because what are you going to do? Trade him for a 6th-round pick? I honestly probably rather just keep Veleno because he's at least an NHL player. So unless he breaks out, unless there's a good name on the trade market that you can feasibly put Veleno in a package for, I think he's going to stick in Detroit for at least this year.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, Kasper potentially could be playing some games this season in Detroit, depending on injuries, depending on, I guess, performance. Veleno as well, he could be thrown on waivers. I mean, that could happen too, right? So, I mean, there's a chance that we get, I don't know. I don't think he's going to get traded either, but that's a possibility. I mean, who knows what type of players are on the market and what teams may be interested. So, again, we'll have to wait and see if that's going to be something that'll happen with Veleno. And that's a big question going into this season of what's going to happen with him. And now that he's signed, there'll be more questions of how is he going to perform, right? So, all right, before we move on to our keep going with our player previews and division preview, we got to pay the bills. Here is a message from the Hockey Writers.
Interested in writing for the Hockey Raiders? If you have experience writing about hockey, are passionate about the sport, and are looking to take your writing to the next level, the Hockey Raiders could be the place for you. Here at THW, you will have the opportunity to hone your craft at one of the world's largest and most respected hockey publishers. You will have control over what you write, be able to seek out media credentials, and be supported by a large network of writers and editors. Plus, you'll get paid for doing it. If you're interested and want to know more about team openings and requirements, please visit the Write for THW page on the Hockey Raiders website. A link to that page is also listed in the description.
Okay, as I said, we're going to keep going and talk about our next player preview, and this is about an exciting player. I love this guy. We've all loved him for a long time. Jonatan Berggren, and we're going to talk about him in our next player preview. Had a really good season last season, kind of splitting. He played in Grand Rapids for a bit and got called up and had a really good end of the season, I think. Devin, we've talked about him on this show before with the lineups and where he's going to kind of fit in. What do you expect from Berggren in his second season in the NHL?
Well, you'd like to see him take another step, right? He obviously cemented himself as an NHL player this year or this past season. We all kind of expected he would do it, but expectations don't mean anything until they're met, and he did it. And he's kind of a blueprint for what you would expect some of the Red Wings' other young players to do this season. Because Berggren did start the season in Grand Rapids. He only played like 5 games with them, but he did start in Grand Rapids. Opportunity, presented itself. There were injuries. They called up Berggren first, right away, and he never got sent down again. And that's kind of what you are hoping to see for guys like Casper, guys like Edvinsson, whoever. But we're not talking about those guys. We're talking about Berggren. He had 15 goals in his rookie season. That's not too shabby, especially considering he was mostly in the bottom 6. And I think that's kind of a baseline for where you want to see him this season. And I will say too, he had 15 goals and 13 assists. The scouting report on him heading into last year was that he's a playmaker. It's maybe a little surprising to see him score as much as he did. So maybe that's a sign of things to come. Maybe he's more of a scorer than we thought he was going to be. But with that being said, I think that a key thing for him this year is to really translate that playmaking ability he has. And some of it's definitely where he was playing in the lineup. Obviously, playing with Veleno and whoever on the fourth line, your results are going to be different than if you're playing with Larkin and DeBrincat or whoever, right? Pop, Comfer, and Raymond, like your numbers are going to be different, case in point. But he's got to earn that opportunity. I know when we talked about projected lineups, I had him in the on the second line with Raymond and Comfer. I think that's a potential line for sure. But I think ultimately you want to see him earn an opportunity to play like key offensive minutes and be relied on in that role and continue to grow and show what made him, such a highly touted prospect just a couple of years ago. Made him one of Pat Brown's favorites, 2-2.
Yeah.
But yeah, just growth. I'm not expecting him to light the world on fire. I'd love to see him hit 40 points. Especially considering, we don't even know where he's really going to play in the lineup right now. He's probably going to be bouncing around quite a bit. But if he can hit 15 goals again, maybe even get 20 and get 40-ish points, I'll be pretty content. At the end of the season, if we're feeling even better about him moving forward, I think that's good. If we're kind of in the same spot, I wouldn't say it's a negative, but I would, maybe a little bit concerning. And maybe he's going to be a guy that feels that pressure of more guys coming up the pipeline, right? So yeah, you just kind of see him continue to grow, continue to show his stuff, and build on the success he had last season.
Yeah, and it's funny because we talked about Veleno at the beginning, and from the same draft, like you said, and right now he should have been the first round pick, and Veleno should have been the second rounder, but that's not how it went. So but it's crazy. It's kind of connections there that they're both in the 2018. I think Berggren is going to end up, we already know he's probably going to end up being a better NHL player. Already has, one season, but he looks like he's going to be a better one. But yeah, I do agree. I think he could actually be a better scorer. And then, if you can put those two together, that's a really good combination of having the same amount of goals and assists. You're a threat in both playmaking and goal scoring. So that makes him a more dangerous player. So yeah, he only played 7 games in the AHL last season. So point a game and then called up, and then, well, the rest is history. And he was the NHL player for the rest of the season. So I expect the same, some growth for him. I think he's going to end up being a guy that I'm projecting 20 goals. I think he'll end up pushing his way into that top 6 at some point. But I think he will probably start on the third line, but he doesn't have bad line mates on that third line either. He could end up playing with Perron, like we had him in there. I think I had him with Perron on the third line. I can't remember. But I'm pretty sure, but he could be just flying around the lineup, and that's not a bad thing for him either. So, but I'm excited. I'm excited to see what he can do this season, in his sophomore season, I guess you'd be calling it, because 67 games, pretty good for a rookie season. I would say this is pretty official that it's his sophomore season, and hopefully there's that sophomore slump like everyone kind of throws around, but hopefully he gets at least 15 goals again and maybe pushes 20. All right, let's move on to our rest of our division preview. We're getting close to the end here. Buffalo Sabres up next. And this team we've talked about a few times on this show. We had an actual episode with our Sabres writer, Jacob Strozek, coming on the show. And we talked about the Sabres and the Senators, where they are in the rebuild with the Red Wings. And right now, I mean, the Sabres are an exciting team. They've got a lot of great prospects, a lot of guys pushing to get into the NHL. So this is a pretty good preview to go between it was actually probably our first one where we're talking about a team that's pretty close in the, rebuild time, where the other teams were quite a bit ahead of the Red Wings. So let's start down the middle like we've done in the past and talk about the Sabres and the Red Wings at center ice. Lots of young talent on the Sabres, even down the middle with Dylan Cousins. He's probably the leader right now. So what do you think about this center depth and the Sabres between the Red Wings here?
Well, the X factor here is Tage Thompson.
Yeah.
And if you don't know why, I guess you didn't watch last season. He kind of chewed up the Red Wings every time they played the Sabres. So if he can continue to be that Tage Thompson, that was, he had a real big breakout year this past season. If that's the Tage Thompson that he's going to be moving forward, I don't know if the Red Wings have anything like that, quite simply. And then going down the lineup, you look at a guy like Dylan Cousins. I think he's fairly comparable to a Dylan Larkin type of player. And then, you get down the lineup, then you see, so basically I kind of think that this is another example of the top of the other team's lineup being greater than the top of the Red Wings lineup. But then as you kind of get down the depth chart, maybe then you even things out. Maybe then you go, all right, maybe this is where the Red Wings have the advantage. Peyton Krebs is one to think about. Is he going to be a center? Is he going to be a winger? He's played both positions. Casey Middlestat is it seems like he's going to be kind of floating around too. He's played center a lot, but in the interest of getting everybody in the lineup they want to have in the lineup, is he going to be down the middle? I like what's the word I want to use here? I guess I like the predictability of the Red Wings centers more, but I like the upside of the Sabres center group more. And that's led by Thompson and Cousins at the top. If you have a guy like Casper, make a jump and become a full-time NHL player, I think that gap evens up a little bit. But as we stand today, I think that the top guys for Buffalo are better than the top guys for Detroit. And I think that's kind of the difference maker, at least in terms of the centers.
Yeah, I don't know why I forgot Tage Thompson was the center. He leads the way, obviously, than over Dylan Cousins. But for some reason, I thought he was a winger. But no, he's a centerman. So he is their top center. But yeah, it's these guys are pretty top heavy for center depth. But their depth though, Peyton Krebs is a pretty good third line center. For the depth chart they're looking at right now. But he's an up and comer. He's 22. So same with Cousins, 22. These guys are pretty young still. Tage Thompson, 25. These guys are all kind of approaching prime years, and this is where the Sabres are going to start becoming a real threat. They were a threat last season, even on offense. So, Right, moving to the wings, and they do have some good guys here too. Jeff Skinner, Alex Tuck. You got Jordan Greenway added at around the deadline last season, so he's in there. Another big body on that team. JJ Peterka looks like he could have a breakout season this year. You go down like Kyle Okposo is on their fourth line. He was a highly touted first round pick not that long, well, quite a while ago now, but 35 years old now. But he can still play. So there's some pretty good depth. So what do you think about the wingers compared to the Red Wings?
Well, I'm going to say this right now because this is subject to change in the next year or two. I like the Red Wings wingers more. Now, the reason why I say that's subject to change is that the Buffalo Sabres forward prospect pool is absolutely loaded. Like how loaded the Red Wings are on the blue line in the prospect pool, that's how loaded Buffalo is up front. You talk about Thompsons and Cousins and Crabs and Paterkas. That's just the tip of the iceberg, guys. But yeah, it seems like at least for the 2023-24 season, the Red Wings won't have to worry about all of that, but that is coming. I think adding DeBrincat is huge in this conversation because I think he is kind of an equalizer in terms of the talent that the Sabres do have. I like just the age demographic of Buffalo's guys too. Like you have Alex Tuck there, and he plays a big, heavy game. He's a fun player to watch. He's 27. Jeff Skinner, who's only like just on the other side of 30, he's 31. When he's on, he's like notoriously bad when he's not playing well, but when he's playing well, he's like a perennial 40-goal scorer, and those are hard to come by. And that's DeBrincat, right? Like he's been a multi 40-goal guy too, so that kind of evens that out. And then they have grit down the lineup. You mentioned Greenway. Paterka has some upside. I would say that that's kind of like Berggren, where maybe they explode. You think about who the Red Wings have on the wing. You have Perron, who probably be in the middle six. I think that's huge. And then you have Rasmussen, who provides size, skill, grit, all that good stuff. I don't need to go down the list of all the wingers, but I think they have a really good, well-rounded group of wingers. Maybe not as much upside as Buffalo's group, but I think that if you're solely focused on this coming season, I like the Red Wings group more. And there's also a lot of versatility there too. Like they have a lot of guys that can play on the wing and move over to the center and all that good stuff. But as we progress into the future, this is going to be a matchup to look at because I already said it. Buffalo's only getting started when it comes to loading up their forward group.
I didn't even mention Jack Quinn, who's going to start the season on.
Yep.
There's another 21 years old, and he had a really good season last year too. You also got Matthew Savoy, Zach Benson, Yuri Kulik, Isaac Rosine. That's even like that. That's not this season, but holy,
that's coming.
It's coming. That wave is just gonna. Yeah, they're going to be an exciting team in the future, and very exciting to watch both the Red Wings and the Sabres play against each other when that does happen, because there's going to be a lot of young, skilled talent on both sides that you're going to be playing against each other. So may see some high-scoring games, unless both defenses can reel in everyone, the goaltending maybe. But all right, let's move to the defense, and the Sabres are anchored by their two pillars, Owen Power and Rasmus Dahlin. They've got some okay talent around them right now, but even in the future, they don't have a lot of big guys coming. I think it's like you say, it's the flip side of the Red Wings. Red Wings have a ton of great defensemen coming. Sabres, they've got their big guys right now, but I don't know about the future for them. So what do you think about it as of this point, matching up between the two teams?
I think that the sooner you have a guy like Edvinsson really start to realize his potential, the more that this is a really close battle, honestly. Because Dahlin and Power, those, you called them their pillars, and there's a reason why. They're both very good, highly skilled, very versatile at both ends of the ice. Dahlin very much looks like the first overall pick that he was, projected to be back in 2018. And Owen Power's only scratching the surface. So I think that, again, the high end, the top guys, I think it's Buffalo. You have Seider, you have Wallman at the top end for Detroit, and obviously Seider has a lot of room to grow. He can kind of even up that the gap as well. And if Wallman can kind of show that last year wasn't a fluke, I think that gives you a bit more confidence. But still, there's just so much upside with Power. There's still so much, Dahlin's only just begun to like really show that he is that guy, right? And let's not write off Matthias Samuelsson either.
Yeah.
Who's like I think Samuelsson's probably their closest equivalent to Jake Wallman, where like it's not necessarily about points for him. It's more about just taking care of business in his own zone and complimenting his D partner. And that's exactly what Wallman does. They have some good guys with experience. Jokiharju is 24, but he's already has some more than a couple of seasons under his belt, so he's been around the block a few times. Eric Johnson just came over from the Colorado Avalanche. He has a cup to his name, so he's he's very well experienced, kind of clipped in with the Boston Bruins for the last few years. So they have some really good experienced guys. I think that the Red Wings, outside of Seider and Wallman, it's all experience, whether it's Petrie, Sherratt, Mata, you kind of know you should know what to expect from that group. Whereas Buffalo's group is maybe a bit younger. And that brings me to what you let off with, where just like the forwards with Buffalo, this is a conversation that's going to continue to develop over time because Edvinsson's coming. Sending Pelika, he's coming, right? Albert Johansson, William Wallander, I can go down the list. They're all going to be knocking on that door. And boys, Red Wings defense going to look a lot different than it does when that day comes. And I think that, assuming they all reach or at least get near their potential, I think that looking into the future, the Red Wings defense is going to be better than Buffalo's. But this season, I think it's close, and I might even give the nod to Buffalo because of how electric Dahlin already is, and how much, and just the possibility that Power can take another step and really assert himself as a top defenseman in this league. It's going to be up to Seider and Wallman to really make this an even conversation in my book.
I agree. I think right now you got that Power and Dahlin are I'd say, like you said, Seider I think is probably equivalent to either Power or Dahlin. But unfortunately, the Red Wings don't have two of them right now, at least.
Exactly.
Edvinsson, if he was there, maybe, but he again wouldn't be at the level yet. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that develops. Just like with the forwards on the Sabres and the Red Wings, the defense is going to be the same. So goaltending, this one's interesting because the Sabres have a really young guy coming up, Devin Levi, who will probably be the starter this season. Eric Comrie's still there. You got Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen or UPL going forward here too. So you got two young goaltenders. Comrie's kind of that. I don't know what's going to happen with that guy. He's veteran. He was supposed to be the starter, but it looks like Levi and UPL will be the kind of the tandem kind of fighting for that. So it isn't much different. You got Husso's more of a veteran goaltender. He's been in the league for a bit, not overly old, but he's much older than Devin Levi. So what do you think about this matchup? Because like I say, it's a bit different.
Again, this comparison with the Sabres is probably the most that we've like, yeah, but let's also talk about 3 years from now because
Like
it just kind of like lends itself to it, right? Um, because I think entering this season, I like the Red Wings goaltending better, and it's literally just because Husso's already showed that he can be a dominant goalie. Not
yeah.
consistently, but he's shown that level. And he's also just like you said, he's older, he's a bit more experienced. You kind of know what you're getting from him, and you can be comfortable with it, right? Whereas the Sabres, all three of their guys, it's kind of like, well, we hope they're good, right?
Yeah.
Like they've all there tons of potential, but we don't know, you know. UPL has kind of been like one of the best goalie prospects in the world for like 8 years at this point, it seems like.
Yeah.
This kind of is I would imagine this is kind of his last year to really show he's going to be part of their future. I imagine he'll be on the trading block if Levi like really just kind of clamps down their starter position and maybe Comrie's the backup because they're paying him money to be that guy. UPL might be on the trading block, but whereas you look down the depth chart for the Red Wings, past Husso, you've got James Reimer, who's the most experienced guy we're talking about right now. He's been around the block once, twice, three, four times. And Alex Lyon was helped lead the Florida Panthers to the playoffs. So another guy with experience that you can theoretically count on. And then, 3 years from now, right? Sebastian Cossa factors in, maybe Trey Augustine factors in, and then we have a really fun conversation.
Yeah.
Not only really good goalie prospects, but Devin Levi's like small for a goalie. I think he's 6 feet tall and like 180 or something like that. He's small. He's like Chris Osgood size. And then Sebastian Cossa is like a monster. He's 6'2", like it's differing sizes too, right? Differing styles. It's a lot of fun actually. So in 3 years when we talk about this, the goalie is going to be a lot of fun to talk about. But as for this season, I think you enter it seeing the Red Wings have a better situation in goal. But I think that the upside of Devin Levi, the upside of UPL, kind of lends itself to say that, if we did this check-in like halfway through the season, the Sabres might be in a better spot. And it all comes down to how their young guys perform.
Yeah, especially Levi. I mean, he had a okay season, 7 games, 2.94 goals against average, 905 save percentage. Not horrible. 5-2 record though. So I mean that either says that it does say that the Sabres were scoring a lot of goals.
and that's maybe something too that like you kind of give Levi some leeway, is that clearly the way the Sabres are constructing themselves, they're okay if Levi lets in 3 goals a night because they're aiming to score 5 a night. Like you can win 5-3 games all season. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's right. Especially you can score your way out of trouble, which it sometimes works. All right. Overall, I mean, this matchup's gonna be fun. This season, next season, 10 years from now, it's gonna be fun to watch, and especially if the Red Wings keep loading up young guys, Sabres do. I'm thinking they're hoping they're not going to have to do that very much longer. They can use what they got, but as of right now, these two prospect pools are just very exciting to track, and two very exciting teams. So it's going to be fun this coming season, see where they're at together. So. Okay, off the rush, and I'm going to go back to Jonatan Berggren. And what do you expect goals-wise from him going in? Does he hit 20? Or are you expecting more, or just where he was?
I am optimistically hoping for 20. I think, I said I kind of want to see his playmaking take a step, and I think that might be the story of this season for him, is that his playmaking does take a step, but maybe at the but maybe in can't think of the right word for it, but basically his goal scoring goes down as kind of he's looking to pass the puck more,
Yeah.
basically. So maybe he gets 18 goals. That's kind of I'll predict he gets 18 goals. He pushes for 20, falls a little short, but his assist number goes like way up, and maybe that gets him to 40 points.
Nice. I'm gonna say 20. I like doing the higher one. I'll do 20 goals for Berggren. I think he'll hit that this season. Because he's gonna have some pretty good line mates even on the third line. So but like you say, the assist totals could go up too, because he'll have that maybe a guy that can maybe finish his passes too. So yeah, we'll see. It's gonna be fun storyline to watch for him too. All right. Well, there's another episode of the Grind Line in the books. Thanks, Devin, for another episode here, and we'll just keep counting down the days till the regular season starts. But we'll try to find some stuff to talk about, even though there's not going to be any news. I'm assuming there's not going to be any news, but we'll keep our player previews going, and of course our division previews, which we have a few teams still left on this series. So keep tuning in for that. Check out thehockeywriters.com for all our Detroit Red Wings coverage as we continue through the offseason. We got lots of preview stuff going out. I'm going to hopefully have a few other prospect spotlights going as well. All the rest of the Red Wings team has got stuff planned for going into this season. So keep an eye out for any of the content, and give this video a like, throw those comments in the comment section, and lots of content still coming, even though we are still in the off season. And until next time, we'll see you on another episode of The Grind Line.